Friends, family, and cohorts, welcome back to another episode of the Fight or Flight podcast. My friend Kevin Seiff is a Navy SEAL veteran, a founder of Crafted Coastal Bakery. He is a father, a husband, a philanthropist, and in my point of view, a spiritual Sherpa. Kevin is a 12-year military veteran, 4 years with the Marine Corps, 8 years with the United States Navy SEALs. He transitioned from the elite special operations community to the entrepreneurship community. After a brief stint in corporate recruiting, he founded multiple ventures, Flintlock Solutions, probably the coolest name I've heard in a long time for a business, Vet Collective, which is a veteran entrepreneur training program, super cool. And then who doesn't love bread? High five him for keeping those hours, those baker's hours, and most notably the Crafted Coastal Bakery with his wife. We have to add in the co-hosting of a podcast with a Green Beret. Pretty fantastic journey there as well. His journey represents, in my opinion, a deliberate rejection of conventional post-military careers in favor of a purpose-driven and community-focused adventure. He is a hands-on entrepreneur, so he's got lessons and fact bombs to drop on us like mad, and I'm excited to get into it. My key insight for you as we get into the discussion is Kevin has traded prestige for autonomy and authenticity. And his story is about to reclaim the purpose through creation, not consumption. My brother, how was that for an intro?
I love that. First off, your voice is like that very baritone radio-esque, the quintessential radio voice, that deep reverberation. Like, what is he going to talk about next?
I do it for a little drama, when I'm around my buddies, I'm kind of a little bit more energetic, but I'm like, try to keep it mysterious. It just keep some ebb and flow here.
That was probably the most extensive introduction I've had, definitely for a podcast, but mostly across the board. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we reach a large audience, a lot of them from the product design and entrepreneur business side of things. So they're not as familiar, nor would they take the time. And a lot I'm learning or absorbing this information while they're working out or commuting. So it's always nice to give an intro. And I'm really keen to understand your military service and that trajectory. I read that this was a calling both from your family, multiple generations of service to the country, but more importantly, you as a young man saying, hey, this is where I want to be. And really, Kevin, what hit me was chasing the dragon, which was a really, I could see all the merch I'd build for you if we ever did something with that visual. But talk to me about this, because it's been some starts and stops along the way.
My life has always been a roller coaster of emotional wins and losses, or not really losses, more setbacks. So I went to the Naval Academy, but I didn't get in right away. Like I applied to it. I had a little bit more fun in high school. I wasn't a good student, and so my grades weren't stellar. But I had this idea in my head that I wanted to be a SEAL. And I didn't know the difference between officer and enlisted back then. My cousin's best friend, my cousin was in the Navy. His best friend was a air crewman with him, and then he switched off to become a SEAL. And he was always around when I was growing up. I think I met him when I was 12 years old or something. And hearing his stories, I'm like, this sounds like the greatest thing ever. And this is the 90s, so this is pre that History Channel documentary. It was pre all those books. The only stuff that was really out there was the Charlie Sheen movie, Navy SEALs.
Right.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Maybe Stu Smith's workout book on training to become a Navy SEAL. But there really just was. Oh, and Dick Marchenko's books, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's really wasn't a lot of stuff out there. And the SEAL community was very little known unless you kind of knew somebody in it. And fortunately for me, that's exactly what I had growing up. But there was this giant of a human in my eyes who had all these cool stories about what he got to do and the training he got to do. And so from a very young age, I locked in on that idea. And throughout the rest of my late childhood and early adulthood, that's just what I wanted to do. And everything became focused on that. So I had an uncle that went to the Naval Academy, and my mom told me about it. Oh, I can go to school for free and join the Navy and then become a SEAL from there. Let's do that. Free college sounds great. The officer enlisted division, it was an unknown to me, and so I didn't think about that it would take an extra 4 years to get there. I could have enlisted right after high school, but I didn't have all the information. But that's just very much my mo. That I just dive forward and figure stuff out along the way. May or may
Oh,
not be the best, most streamlined path, but you just keep making headway, and you figure problems out along the way. So I went to the Naval Academy on my second try. Didn't get in the first try. That was setback number one early in my life. Went through 4 years, and again, wasn't the greatest student, and so it was a really competitive time. I graduated in 2008, so the war in Iraq had been raging. Afghanistan had been going on, so there'd been a lot of publicity around the SEAL community and just the military in general at that point. Roberts Ridge happened, the Operation Red Wings happened, and there'd just been more and more information coming out about the SEALs, and so more people have been interested in that. And I think my year at the academy, there's 90 guys that were vying for 24 spots. So once again, I didn't get the bill that I was hoping for. Ended up going Marine Corps, which probably was a good thing for me in the end. It gave me some diversity of thinking and military knowledge and learning experience. The Marine Corps is very structured and disciplined, and it teaches you a lot of that stuff. They have a lot of doctrine to give you a foundation of knowledge for military operations. I think if I had gone straight into the SEAL teams, I would have gone in a little immature and underinformed.
okay.
Plus, it just gave me a whole different perspective on a different side of the military. SEALs are kind of the Hollywoodized, going off on their own, rebellious. I call special operations guys the emos of the military, because we try
Nice.
so hard not to conform with the rest of the military that we end up conforming with one another. You see guys with their gator sunglasses, their Sunto watches, their sleeve tattoos, their long hair. You're like,
Yeah.
you're obviously in the military, but you're not the normal military. Seeing the discipline side of the Marine Corps, where you're getting haircuts every week, you're shaving every day, you're wearing crisp uniforms everywhere you go, and so it's just a very different side of the military that I think was extremely beneficial for me to have for a few years before I joined the SEAL teams.
Kevin, flipping the script backwards just for a moment, what with the 90 people vying for those 24 spots, what was that selection like? And was it academic rigor, or was it all
It's
in?
everything. Yeah,
It's
it's
everything.
a holistic view. So there's a whole bunch of things that they rank people off of. Obviously, academics. There's leadership stuff. Which positions you held over the 4 years of the academy. PT tests that you do sporadically throughout the time there. So there's what they call a mini buds program. It's a weekend long, where they have everyone that wants to be a SEAL go through a weekend long assessment. First off, you have to pass it.
Sure.
Then among the people that pass it, they rack and stack them. There's the SEAL standard test, that the PT test that everybody who wants to become the SEAL has to go through. It consists of a 500-meter swim, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and then a mile-and-a-half run. And that's just a standardized test that they have, so they can give a quantitative
Sure.
measurement of your physical abilities. And then there's an interview as well. So there's a whole bunch of things that go into it. So you have your academy class ranking, then you also have your SEAL training ranking, plus your interview, that all go into the package of you as an
Right.
individual.
Very cool. And so from there, you went to the Corps. From the Corps, you spent your eight or the
4 years.
4 years, excuse me, 4 years there. Then you applied to Buds. Do I have the progression right?
Yep.
And you didn't make the initial
Yeah,
application. The
once
cut.
again, didn't get to the academy right away, didn't get SEALs right away, and then from the Marine Corps, I was applying to both MARSOC and
Yeah.
so MARSOC's the Marine Special Operations, now Raiders, and then I was applying to SEALs. The SEALs at the time, they're doing it every 6 months for inter-service transfer, so anybody from the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, wherever, you can apply to transfer into the Navy with a NSW contract. My first attempt, I didn't get it. As I said, a package in with MARSOC, but there's like a year and a half wait list to get in there, because so many people were trying to get into MARSOC once they opened it up to all the different military occupational specialties, MOSs. So it used to be you had to be combat arms, so like infantry, tanks, artillery, something like that. And then they brought it in and said anybody can come in, logistics, supply, intel, anything. You can now
Wow.
try, but it flooded the candidate pool, which meant that
Of
there was just
course. Yeah.
a backlog. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hedge my bet and see what else I can get into. And yeah, got it on my second attempt. But then it took 8 months to go from the Marine Corps side. I had to go all the way up to the commandant of the Marine Corps office, and then transfer over to the Navy side. I had to go all the way up to the CNO of the Navy, and then both services had to coordinate on me leaving the Marine Corps and then getting into the Navy, so there's no break in service. And it was atrociously slow. It was, as I
Oh
said,
my
eight
God.
months from when I got the letter accepting me to when I submitted my stuff, and I actually left the Marine Corps and swore into the Navy.
Bureaucracy at its finest.
It was painful. I tell people all the time that process was more painful than going through buds.
You think two commandants would sit down? It's like trading baseball cards. Yeah, we'll take
Yeah,
Kevin or
we'll
give
take
you.
this
No,
guy, you take that guy.
we'll
Well, it's
flip
all
it.
even exchanges.
Oh my God. But the pattern here is quite remarkable. You hit a roadblock and you're focused, laser locked on seeing it through, whether it's the academy, whether it's the Corps, whether it's getting accepted into this elite program. So
Well, it didn't end there either. I had to do Hell Week twice too.
yeah, I was going to ask about that. I read that you ended up with a pulmonary edema.
Yeah, it's called. There's multiple types of pulmonary edemas. Pulmonary being lungs, edema being, I think, fluid buildup. Not a corpsman. But basically, it's anytime you're getting fluid in the lungs, and there's one called HYPE that most people know about, high altitude or HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema. You hear that with
Yep.
like alpine climbers when they're elevated too quickly, their body just starts excreting fluids into the lungs. I had one called SIPE, which is swimmer-induced pulmonary edema, and it's pretty rare. It's pretty much triathletes and then BUDS candidates, and they don't really understand why we get it, because some people will get it, others won't. It's typically in the wintertime, but I got it in the summertime. There's a guy a couple classes ahead of me. He literally got it three classes in a row. His first class, he got it on Monday night of Hell Week. The second time he got it on Tuesday of Hell Week. The third time he
Come
got
on.
it on Wednesday of Hell Week, and they finally just pushed him through. I got it I think we were going through Hell Week in July, and then I rolled immediately into the next class. I'm like, I'm not waiting around. Just recycle me in, and I'm ready to go. And I went through in October and was fine. So it was colder water, colder environment, but that time
Okay.
I was fine. But essentially, yeah, your body just starts pushing fluid. Oxygen goes from your lungs into the bloodstream. For whatever reason, your body starts pushing that oxygen back from the bloodstream into the lungs, but it pulls a lot of fluid with it. And so you get fluid buildup in the lungs, and it causes your O2 saturation in your blood to drop. So normally you're like 95, 96%. Mine was dropping down into the low 80s, high 70s. Guys get really, really bad. They can be in like the 60s, and you risk giving yourself a heart attack, basically.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
That's like
it's a really
legit.
serious thing. But literally, all you need to do to get over it is warm yourself up, get some rest, and get some fluids. Ironically.
That's it.
Yeah, and I was
Interesting.
so I got rolled out Wednesday morning. I was in the next class by Monday, and I
Oh
was
wow.
good enough to go.
Okay. And while you're experiencing this, you got the frothy stuff coming up, and you can't catch your breath, and the whole
Yeah, you're
nine's
basically
there.
spitting, or you're coughing pink frothy spit up, and it feels like anything you're doing is at a full sprint.
Wow. So you roll, you get back in, and you see your way through, and then you take obviously the commission, the service, 12 years there, plus the academy. What did you learn through the process of being told no or not now? And how did you maintain the focus to the end goal of what that was? And the reason I ask that is, as we discussed before we started, I've got a lot of colleagues and cohorts that are pivoting, making career changes either because a market's consolidating, there are layoffs, they don't have purpose in what they're doing. And there's that, what the fuck moment? And how do I see my way through this? And there's no safety net. And can you talk to us just a little bit through this career service? And then I want to dig in deeper with you post military service, but the mindset and lessons learned.
I mean, I think it comes down to where you are in life. Like when you're young, you can have that that mantra of burn the ships, all bets off. This is like the one option we're doing. I did that with college. I didn't apply to any other colleges, so when I didn't get into the Naval Academy in the first round, I had a oh shit moment. Fortunately, I got into an academy prep program. It was a semester, and then I went to a community college first semester, did well, and was able to apply and get in. But yeah, that was, oh yeah, no, I'm just going to go to the Naval Academy. That's my path. I don't need to have plan B, C, and D. And then from the Naval Academy, there was no plan B. It was, I'm going SEALs. And so when I didn't get it, it was again, like a kick in the nuts of, oh shit, what am I doing now? I'm going to the Marine Corps, and I have zero experience with the Marine Corps at that point. Typically at the Naval Academy, every summer you do a couple different summer cruises, they call it. Not like carnival cruises. They're training blocks that you do during the summertime, and 99% of the people have some interaction with the Marine Corps, because there's one of the blocks is called Pro-Trimid, so you do a week with aviation, a week with submarines, and a week with the Marine Corps. And then for the guys that want to go Marine Corps, they also do the Leatherneck block, where they spend, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks with the Marine Corps doing stuff. I didn't do Pro-Trimid because I went to dive school, and I didn't do Leatherneck because I did a summer cruise with one of the SEAL teams, because again, that was my focus. And so when I didn't get it, I'm like, I have zero experience with the Marine Corps other than our company officer, who is a major. Awesome guy. Phenomenal human being. And I really appreciate everything he did for me and helping me along with this transition time. Major Siskel. I think he got out as a colonel. If he's out there, thank you.
Shout out.
Yeah. And so I was showing up to TBS. So TBS is the officer... It's not boot camp, because that's OCS, but it's like the follow-on continuation training where every Marine Corps officer, whether you're a pilot, a tank driver, a supply, everybody goes through this provisional platoon commander course called TBS, the basic school in typical Marine Corps fashion. And it's 6 months long, and you learn everything about the general practices of running a rifle platoon. And it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of like 6 months of Boy Scouts. Every month you go out to the field for a week, and it progressively gets more and more complex. You start out with a fire team element, then a squad, then a platoon, and then you start doing urban training. And you get to meet a ton of people. You know, there's 300 people in your company, and so every one of them gets equally spread out across the Marine Corps. So it's very unique in that sense, in that leaving TBS, you now know somebody in every single community of the Marine Corps, basically.
Wow.
Where I don't think any other service really has that, especially the Navy. The Navy is very stovepipe. There's the aviation community, there's the surface community, there's the submarine community, and they really don't interact a whole lot outside of, you know, operation coordination. But the Marine Corps, everything revolves around that, you know, 19-year-old Lance Corporal rifleman. Whether you are flying a Cobra attack helicopter or you're doing supply in the rear, like everything is laser focused on making sure that rifleman has everything he needs to bring the fight to the enemy.
Okay.
And so they make sure that everyone recognizes that's the mission, and that there's a camaraderie across the Corps that is unrivaled across any other service.
Got it. So through this learning, the mental models that you're taking on, lessons that between the Naval Academy.
Sorry. The original question of what are the lessons of transition. So early on, you know, you kind of have that mentality of you're invincible, anything is possible, burn the bridges, let's go forward with this one. And that was very much my mindset early on. And then after BUDS, so after I got from the Marine Corps to the Navy, made it through BUDS, you start seeing a little bit of shift as you just mature, you have some life experience, and you're seeing what's actually possible and what worked in life. As I was getting to the tail end of my Navy career, and I knew I was going to be getting out, you start seeing, all right, I should probably come up with a little bit better plan than I'm just going to go do this and make it happen. While that largely worked in my life, through all the planning I'd done in the military, you see that, okay, I can develop a little bit better plan than point A, point B, and then just run through walls to get there. You can be a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more intentional with your plans. And so leaving the military, I was really fortunate that I was introduced to the Honor Foundation that has the mission of supporting, it is originally just SEALs, and they've branched off to special operations and support. but it's to help special operators find their next purpose, their next mission in life, so they can be successful. Because what they were seeing was SEALs were getting out and they had like a 60% unemployment rate within the first year of getting out. These guys are top of the game, elite athletes, super smart, driven, and here they were leaving the military and completely floundering. And people were wondering, why is this happening? And I'm sure you've had conversations with athletes and other elite performing people that once they hit that goal and they stop doing that, I think Michael Phelps talked about it pretty extensively after he retired from swimming. It's like, what do you do with your life after you have such clear purpose and drive and success, and then you stop doing that? And
Right.
so the Honor Foundation did a really good job of helping guys be vulnerable with each other. You know, it's a closed group. They're all special operators. Let's talk about what we're going to do when we get out. What actually interests you? Because although a lot of us look the same, of 5'10" fit white dudes,
Right.
we don't think the same. You know, some of us are liberal, some of us are conservative, some of us are creative, some of us are very process oriented. Some of us want to start their own businesses. Some of us want to get a job. Some of us want to take care of families. Some of us want to focus on the next career. There's so many different combinations out there that I think guys kind of get funneled into the same path because we all did this thing that's very similar, so we should all do this next thing that's real similar. And it was leaving a lot of guys wanting on the back end. You know, it's not all about the paycheck. It's not all about having the big national security level position. Some guys like me found out I'm actually very happy working with my hands, doing something that is meaningful to my local community, but I don't need to have national prestige. I don't need to be continuing on with the Defense Department or War Department now, doing weapon sales or security. I actually really enjoy being at home, going surfing, hanging out with my kids, baking bread, and watching the process of growing the small business with a product that's getting better and better and better.
Kevin, amazing. A couple quick questions, if I may. You use the word intentionality in the context of having a purpose. And speaking with athletes like yourself and those that do it for a living, the word goals come up. Is there a difference in your perspective between having a goal and having a plan?
The two different things. So with the military planning process, there's a segment called the commander's intent, and it's one of the most important parts of reading a mission operation. You hear, all right, we're going to this place to do this thing, but the commander's intent is person that's pushing these orders down to the unit to execute it. He's saying, this is what I want the end state to be. I'm not going to tell you how. This is just the what. So kill this person, blow up this building, whatever it is. I'm not going to say this is how you're going to get to that location and find that person and drag them out and get them out of there. All I want is you to have this person in custody on the back end. And now it pushes down that responsibility to figure out how to that unit that's going to be on the ground. And so when things invariably don't go as planned and you need to pivot a little bit or adjust the plan, you can make those decisions at the lowest possible level because you know what the end state is supposed to be. That is the goal. We're gonna do that. The plan is coming up with how you're gonna accomplish that goal. And so those two things should be separate because one is unchanging. You always want to finish this thing. The plan is meant to be flexible. If you have a plan that's too rigid, as soon as you hit the first obstacle, it all just falls apart and you're not going to be successful. So you need to have that flexibility and the ability to recognize something isn't going well. We need to adjust. What do we need to adjust to make that happen?
Really well said. So the next question that comes to my mind is you guys are experts in taking plans and being adaptive to the plans to achieve the goal. What was it about that mental model that did not get applied to the 60% of elite operators that were unemployed? Or said differently, was the psychological change from being high skilled, high valued, fast paced operator, then all of a sudden having to rediscover oneself, as you had mentioned, Michael Phelps? And the reason I ask this is with 60% unemployment with people that are experts in goal setting and planning, I'm curious, where the disconnect is, what that gap is, because that's a gap that I'm seeing with a lot of my colleagues that are trying to figure out what's next.
There's a bunch of things that go into that. It's tough to say it's this one thing, but the broad strokes are, first, the SEAL community is probably one of the most heavily supported groups of people. I mean, there's, I think, 2,500 active duty SEALs total. There's a bunch of former SEALs, but at any given time, there's around 2,500. When SEALs oftentimes get tasked with a mission, they have a lot of supporting elements. And then there's also the rear echelon, the supply people, the intel people, the logistics people, the air transportation people. All those guys are there supporting that one little pinprick of the tip of the spear. And so you have all these assets and resources coming in to help you get your mission completed. Plus, there's all your brothers to your left and right that are on board trying to get that same thing done. When guys hang up their uniform, oftentimes they don't have that support going forward. So they were a SEAL one day, the next day they're no longer a SEAL, and there's like, oh, I figured all this stuff out. I can figure out how to get a job. That's not complicated. I did these crazy high risk missions in chaotic, violent environments. I can go find a job. But what they don't realize is most jobs aren't going to give them that satisfaction, and they no longer are going in having conversations that most guys probably took for granted. It's, hey, it's going in the cages, where we have all our gear, and we're just shooting the shit with each other, decompressing, venting about all the things that are going on. You're not going in there intentionally like you're going to a therapist. You're just shooting the shit with your friends. But there's that emotional and psychological depressurization that happens when you have that, and you're all kind of going forward trying to accomplish the same stuff. When you get out and you're trying to find a job and it's not going as planned, it's a lot harder. The jobs aren't as exciting. That was the biggest thing I saw when I first got out. I started interviewing with companies. I'm like, this is what corporate jobs are like. Looking at the financial modeling of corporate housing in cities that haven't established a presence yet. This is mind-numbing. Like, I'd rather listen to Ben Stein talk about economics. And so you have this rude awakening of like, oh my God, this is nothing what I expected it to be. I thought corporate America was going to be this place where everything is efficient because they're all looking at profit models and they want to make sure everything's lean. The military, there's no profit feedback loop. So you can set up a base and keep churning more money into it and more support effort and more resources. And it doesn't matter if it's costing people money because they're looking at a separate metric of how many missions are going out, how many bad guys have been killed, how many interactions are we having with local key leaders. It's completely separate from the financial modeling. And so the corporate side, they're like, everything needs to revolve around making a profit. So I thought everything was going to be very streamlined and efficient and everyone's going to be professional. It's not the case. It's the normal workforce is the Wild West. There's some great companies out there, and there are some absolute shit shows that are just faking it until they either run out of money or they finally do something right that works. And so to get to your question with why guys struggle is they no longer have that support system. They are going into it alone. They underestimate how difficult it's going to be making that change. And they don't realize how important having that clear purpose and mission of being in the military was. And now you're trying to recreate that in a business setting that may or may not have the same level of value to you.
Value. That's an important word. So we're not talking about self-awareness, and we're not talking necessarily about approval or accolades. We're talking about value that one gains, one can give, not necessarily profit value, because as you pointed out, some can be chasing the dollar and not doing anything good with it. So yeah. I appreciate that. Value. Let's talk about wanting to impact 100,000 veterans and why I call you the spiritual Sherpa. It's probably the first time you've heard that, but it's
a good. I'll put that on my LinkedIn next.
Bro, you have to take that. I mean, for real. Kevin, I've had some other special operators on the podcast, and they're amazing people. And I thank you for your service and their service. I appreciate the commitment that it takes to keep us safe in a dangerous world. But for many, it ends when they end their service, and you're continuing forward in the servitude and service to your community, not just as a father and a husband, but wanting to do better, man. And so a mad high five. And I'm curious about value. I'm also curious about trading in for a rolling pin and what that means. And talk to us for a moment about value creation, because that's what business is about. But I'm all about purpose before profit, and I think you are as well.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at my LinkedIn, it looks like everything was figured out. It was a very intentional, clear plan that I executed on. The reality is, it was a shit show of just figuring out what's working. I was a blind squirrel grasping at the ground trying to find a nut. I got out on February 29th, 2020. The date is important because if you look back to 2020, that was 2 weeks before COVID shut everything down. Like literally here in San Diego, the beaches were closed. You couldn't go to the beach and just hang out without anybody else around. And so it put me in two different mindsets, I guess you could say. One is I just left the military. I had all this structure and a clear path of going forward. This is what your career path could be. And now I just got out. I'm trying to find a job. I'm trying to figure out being a civilian. I'm trying to figure all these new aspects of my life out. And now I'm throwing on the pandemic on top of it. And I'm not a pandemic conspiracy theorist with any of this. It is more of this is the new situation. Like everyone that I've talked to up to this point was pre-pandemic. This is how you find a job. This is the interactions, is things you should do. And now I get out, and none of that is applicable. There's no people aren't meeting for cups of coffee. Restaurants are closed. Businesses aren't doing in-person interviews. Employees aren't coming into the office. And so like all these new things I'm figuring out while figuring out not being in the military anymore. But at the same side, it was a phenomenal opportunity for me because I ended up never having to go into an office. I learned very quickly how to work from home and got to see what creating my own schedule, figuring out my priorities for the day. And I don't have to report. Well, I kind of reported into somebody, but it wasn't the same as being in the office, having to be there for certain hours and all those other things. I picked a role when I got out because I wanted to be able to travel. Again, decision made pre-pandemic. My wife and I love the idea of being able to have that remote opportunity where we can travel around. We just did 3 weeks in Costa Rica. We're like, how can we keep doing vacations like this while being employed and bringing in income? So I took a job as a outside recruiter with the tech and life science space. And so I was working with startups, placing scientists and engineers and stuff like that. And it's a very lucrative job. I compare it to being a real estate agent for people. So instead of selling houses, I'm selling people to companies.
Wow.
And it was a phenomenal segue into doing something outside the military because I got to see this is how a lot of the businesses work. I was working with founders and venture capitalists, and employees, and hearing about all these new technologies coming out. But what I learned is, and it only took me 10 months before I quit, is I didn't want to work for somebody else. Like I had been doing that my entire military career and seeing how this business was run. Like I can pretty much do this myself. Recruiting is not hard. You don't go to school to get a degree in whatever it takes to be a recruiter. It's like, can you be organized? Can you set priorities? Can you have conversations? And can you network? And so what I did is at the end of the year, I got COVID. My pipeline of candidates had been closed out. I didn't have any new deals in the pipeline, and my commission was going to reset at the end of the year. Like I can either restart in January,
Sure.
doing the same thing, or I can start my own company doing the same thing, but be my own boss and not give up 75-80% of my commission to the company where I was already doing all that stuff anyway. And so I took that leap of, I've never run a business. I had no aspirations to run a business, but I can probably figure this out. The owners of this company weren't anything special. It wasn't like they had some crazy background that gave them a competitive advantage over other people. And so with PowerPoint, Google and PowerPoint, I made a logo. With
Cool.
Gmail, I got a free email address.
Love it.
I used Excel as my CRM. And the only thing I paid for to start my company was the LinkedIn Recruiter software suite, which was $7,500 for the year. And so with recruiting, kind of like, as I said, with real estate, you make one deal, you can get $20,000. So if you do one deal every other month, that's $120K a year. And my overhead was $7,500.
Okay.
So the numbers work out really well starting a service-based industry or service-based company because there's very little barrier to entry. So consulting, coaching, recruiting, being a realtor, all that stuff. It's great to learn about how to run a business without all the stresses of typically running a business. Like here in Encinitas on Coast Highway, where you get all the traffic spots, it's $10,000 to $15,000 just to rent the facility, the building that you're going to start a brick and mortar in. That's not including insurance or employees or whatever your product is to sell. It is prohibitively expensive to start a brick and mortar business. And if you don't know about anything about running a business, payroll, insurance, LLCs, taxes, all that stuff, and now you're piling in all those other stressors of I need to be making this many thousands of dollars every day just to break even. That's not even paying yourself, not giving profit, just to break even. That's why so many businesses fail, because people just get in over their head really early. So learning about running a business with very little risk was an eye-opener experience for me. I did that for a couple of years before I realized I didn't like the transactional nature of doing recruiting. And so I shuttered that, but I learned so much about entrepreneurship and running a business that I wanted to teach other people about those while I was also building the next chapter of my life. But I started talking on LinkedIn about entrepreneurship for veterans, and it really struck a nerve. Like all of a sudden people were messaging me and responding and having all kinds of crazy engagement on my posts. And I saw that there's a lot of other people out there that are struggling to find purpose and meaning and just enjoyment in their career, but they didn't know about the entrepreneurial side. Because like me, they didn't think that they had the capital to start a business. They didn't have an idea. They didn't have some crazy new Facebook thing, which most people believe you need to start a business. And so I was like, all right, I will just talk about what goes into starting a business, give as much information as I can, and try and create dialogue so that guys leaving the military understand all their options as they get out. You don't have to go right into a corporate job. Or if you do get into a corporate job, you don't have to stay there. You can shift off to something else in the future.
I love the approach that you take here, the sensibility of building your own community and being a self-starter. And what really resonates with me, Kevin, is an understanding of what moves you. You're saying, I don't want to be transactional. I take that flip as relationships are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether those relationships are with a team member, an end consumer, a landlord, a repeat customer, whatever that may be. And clearly you have the fundamentals down. You're talking about sales funnels and CRM and this, that, and the other thing. So you've done your diligence there, which is amazing. So, profound applause for having the readiness to jump into the deep end and figure it out without going upside down. A lot of people turtle, a lot of people tap out, hence the flight, not the fight. So you've embodied the fight throughout the conversation and everything that you're building. Baker's hours can't be easy, my friend. I can only imagine what that's like. Hopefully you're getting your training in. I'm curious, looking through your social media and your LinkedIn, humor seems to be a way you manage some stress. You refer to yourself as an indentured service at one point in time. I thought that was hilarious. Is that something that you've had throughout your life, or is that something that you've acquired as you've gone through these post-military episodes?
It's 100% something you have to get through. Like if you're in buzz and you can't laugh about the ludicrous things that we have to do, like at one point, this isn't getting anyone in trouble. This is just things that happen at Buds. There's weird things that happen. We're getting reprimanded for our performance in our inspection, and I was having to do upside down log rolls on the berm. So anyone ever been to Coronado and they see the berm where the Bud students work, it's like a 10-foot high sand berm that protects the facilities from the waves that come in during the winter when the waves get big. The instructors love using the berms as ways to get you tight. Running up and down a 10-foot high soft sand berm sucks. So we're doing upside down log rolls. So my head's lower than my feet, and I'm rolling along the length of the berm, soaking wet, covered in sand, and they had made me put a double horseshoe of dip in. So I don't dip. Even though I was in the SEAL teams in the Marine Corps, everyone I feel like dipped. There's dip camp bottles everywhere. I do not. They thought that was hilarious, and so they maybe put a double one in. So my head is spinning already, and then I'm doing upside down log rolls, and we get to the end. We've done like a quarter mile of these rolling, and they say stop, go back the other direction. So my head had been rolling this way, my equilibrium had been going this way, and I'm going back the other way. And I start throwing up, and the guy next to me is getting pissed at me because I'm throwing up into the sand as he's having to roll through it. If you can't look back at that and to be like, this is just ridiculous, the stuff that we had to do to get through this, and that was obviously very tame. Like, that's not a physically demanding thing. It's not push-ups and running with a boat on your head. But that's really what Buds is. It's just constant variation of mental and physical stressors.
Yes.
The sleep deprivation. There's you're hungry, you're tired, you're wet, you're cold, you're sandy, you're chafed, you're getting yelled at, you're trying to meet timelines, you're under a load, whatever it is. It's designed to constantly stress you because they want to see at what point the stress is going to break you. They can't shoot at you. They can't have your teammates getting blown up because obviously that's unsustainable for a training pipeline. So they have to find other ways to bring people to the breaking point. And if you're taking everything too seriously, you're going to break. Like you have to have that pressure release to find the humor in the situation. Having that sense of humor has always been a way for me to relieve some of that stress that is going on in life, and just to see how tame the situation really is. Like, it's very easy for people to get consumed by their own problems and think that everything is crumbling around them. If you don't have perspective to see, well, it's not that bad. I've done this. I can handle this situation, or these people have it much worse than me. I can handle this little bit of unfortunate circumstances that are going on right now. And so it's just made everything much more enjoyable. Plus, I think other people see it and they're like, this guy's having a lot of fun doing what he's doing. He's not taking being a baker too seriously. The indentured servant thing came up originally because I wasn't helping my wife full time. This was my wife's business that I convinced her to start because her bread was that good. And so I was doing my own stuff. I had my own job with my own things I was trying to solve, but she would oftentimes need help. We're lifting 50-pound bags of flour, or she would just need help mixing this thing or taking these things out of the oven. And so I laughed that I was an indentured servant because I wasn't getting paid to do any of this. I was just doing all the menial physical labor, and my passport's in the drawer in the kitchen right next to hers. So I joked that she even has my passport under lock and key, so I can't leave the country.
That's epic. That's great. Kevin, this has been real. I appreciate it. We're coming up close to the hour now. Just to recap, you've taken us through some really interesting points of view. Perspective versus mindset. The perspective, much like goal and plan, the mindset can be value-based and ardent, but the perspective can be flexible to the circumstances and inputs that are coming in. So I appreciate that. I really appreciate your explanation of goal versus plan. I'm a big goal-oriented person, whether it's a setback or a set forward. It's just, let's reset, as they say, and keep getting after it. So I appreciate it. I think you're one of the bravest people that I've had the pleasure of meeting and speaking to, not because you were a SEAL, but yes, of course, because of the circumstances there, but because of how you've been willing to publicly share your experience that most veterans were not or are not openly talking about it. Who am I without a uniform? Sort of the way I distill it down. You're the same dude, same special operator, just looking for a different arena to play in. And so
I just wear an apron instead of a plate carrier.
Amen. Right? You do it with a big smile. I mean, I think that takes more courage than most anything. So super grateful for the messaging that you're putting out and what you're doing for the community. Kevin, I'd love to switch gears with you and give you 25 rapid fire questions with two choices. I don't want you to think. I just want you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Send it.
Here it comes, brother. Speed or power?
Speed.
Discipline or motivation?
Discipline. Motivation's waning.
Officer or enlisted?
Doesn't matter. Find which one fits you best. Different jobs.
Rifle or rolling pin?
Rifle.
My brother, I knew that was coming. Purpose or profit?
Purpose. 100%.
Sourdough or gluten-free?
Gluten-free is not bread. Don't ask if I make gluten-free bread.
I won't. Here's the tough one. SEAL or Marine?
Oh, well, this one is, I get asked all the time, and there's a very clear answer. The Marine Corps as a whole is the premier organization, the largest of the entities. The Marine Corps birthday ball is the greatest thing that you'll ever go to if you ever get the chance to go to one of those. The SEALs as a individual community, so like infantry or tanks or intel, something like that, SEALs have a far better community than anything I did in the Marine Corps. So at the small unit level, SEALs, but as an organization, the Marine Corps has that down in spades.
Nice. Thank you for that. Lead or follow?
Depends what you're trying to do. You should be able to do both.
Oh, well said. Cash flow or growth?
Cash flow.
Here's a tough one, man. If you want to skip it, you're welcome to say I pass. You ready?
Send it.
Trident or wedding ring?
Wedding ring.
Oh, good answer. You got to go home tonight.
As I said, like the trident is what you did. The wedding ring is what you're building.
Well said. Really well said. Offense or defense?
It always depends. What are you trying to accomplish?
Bootstrap or fundraise?
I've always done bootstrapping, but I understand the value of the other. Some businesses require more initial capital that you just can't do on your own.
Harder or smarter?
Always harder. Always be harder.
My brother. Pacific or Atlantic?
Pacific.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, easy. Colder water, but it's just better over here.
SIG or Glock?
I have a SIG, but I enjoyed the Glocks. But I used my entire SEAL careers with the SIG.
Planning or improv?
You need to be able to do both.
Team room or kitchen?
Team room.
Risk or safety?
Risk.
Build or sell?
Building's the fun part. Selling's the celebration at the end.
Mission or recipe?
Same.
Same. Action or analysis?
Action.
Action every day.
Yep.
Here's one for you. Who you were or who you're becoming?
One leads into the other.
How so?
I mean, everyone will always have nostalgic images of, what it was like early back then. People ask if I miss being in the SEAL teams. Yes, but if I went back in today, it would be a different community than when I first joined. Different wars, different people, different policy. Everything is different. So you can't go back to what was.
Kevin, can I close with the hardest question of them all?
Please do.
Are you happy?
Very. Immensely.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
We're happy for you. As we lean into concluding this podcast, if anyone would like to get in touch with you for a speaking engagement, a consultation, a brother in need, or just a great loaf of bread, how would one go about doing that? How would you like for them to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is easy. Kevin Seiff, Seiff. My email is kevin@flintlocksolutions.com. That pivoted from my recruiting agency. I just kept the LLC and everything else. I've just become my personal LLC. I do speaking engagements, consulting, coaching, all that stuff from now.
This has been real, Kevin. I appreciate you and your time, especially West Coast and with the little one, although baker's hours, so maybe you're accustomed to it.
Always.
And my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure. Lessons well taken on. I think they're applicable to anyone facing a challenge or a circumstance. It's the model of purpose. It's the model of setting goals, being flexible and adaptive, understanding what the assets are that you discussed. And my biggest takeaway is asking for help, whether it's in a team room, a private setting, or just down the street with some buddies, just keeping it your effortless self. So
don't be a lone wolf. Figure it out. Find a tribe of some sort.
Man, thank you for everything, and friends and family. Looking forward to publishing this episode. Thanks so much.